an influential mindset to get the results that you want, to get those opportunities and whatever it is that you're desiring in your career. So for those of you who don't know me, I will take a minute to introduce myself because I'm going to be posting this outside of my private Facebook group as well, because many people have reached out to me to ask for access to training. So it seems to be a really popular topic. So for those of you who, or if you're watching me right now and you don't know much about me, I will be happy to introduce myself. My name is Sharissa Sebastian, and I'm a leadership and executive coach for corporate women. So what I do is basically help corporate women just really thrive in their career, have the influence that they want to have the impact that they want to have without burning out, but while really enjoying their work and really having that level of, providing the level of support to their teams and just having that impact that they're looking to have, and while making sure that they're maintaining their work-life balance and really just getting as much joy out of their career as possible, and also looking forward to growth opportunities and things like that. So in a nutshell, that is what I do. So if you're listening to me right now, chances are that you are looking to learn about how to be influential, right? And there's so many ways that you can leverage this if you are a person of influence, if you know how to influence both in your personal life as well as your professional life. So a little bit of backstory behind this. I'm actually in the process of writing a book on influence. I don't have a title yet, but I'm in the process of doing a lot of research and pulling different things together to really help you as much as possible to be the most influential person and leader that you can possibly be. So what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to have a series of videos that are going to touch on this topic of influence, because there is a lot to unpack. So today is just like an introductory taste into this area of influence, but I also want to make sure that you are walking away with what you need to be able to at least take the next few steps. And so you have some action items, and that's built into what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So what I suggest doing is, if you are watching the replay, if you wouldn't mind just putting replay below so I know, but also if you are watching the replay, I would pause this video if you don't have a pen and piece of paper or some way to take notes, and go ahead and grab something so that you can take notes, because I'm going to be sharing a lot with you. And I'm also going to give you some reflection questions so that you can really walk away from this and have a little more of a deeper insight into how you can apply what I'm about to teach you to where you are right now and how you can start to take that next step. And of course, if you need any help with this, I'm happy to post a link below to schedule a free strategy session with me as well. So with that, I'm going to jump right into today's training, and the two main things that I'm going to be covering with you. I'm kind of breaking this down into two parts. And I definitely want to make sure that I'm giving you as much as possible, but I also don't want it to be overwhelming. So like I said, I'm going to be creating a series on influence, covering the different aspects of it. So today we're going to be talking about mindset, or at least touching on it. So there's a lot more that I can share with you, but for right now, we're going to be starting off by talking about mindset and also the characteristics and attributes of an influential leader. So let's start with mindset first. So if you've been in my world at all, or you've listened to any of my videos, you know that this is a topic that I cover a lot, because it really all starts up here, right? So our thoughts, our beliefs, all of those things really drive how we show up, drives our ability to influence, and drives the actions and the outcomes that we get to a large extent, right? So talking again about what we can control. Obviously, we can't control how other people react to us. But in this area of influence, the good news is you can do everything that you can, what I'm about to teach you, to make sure that you have the best opportunity to be able to influence in a positive way. So that's what this is all about. And so with that, I'm going to actually jump right in, and you'll see that I'm going to be looking at my notes, because there's a lot that I want to cover today, and I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So let's start with the mindset aspect of it, and then I'm going to cover some attributes. And then once I cover the attributes, I'm going to give you a couple of prompts or questions so that you can kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive and do more of a reflection, so that you know how to look at this, this particular area that I'm talking about, and then how to evaluate and make sure that you are focused on the right areas so that you can be the most influential. So let's jump right in. So when it comes to mindset, one of the things that's really, really important, and you may have heard me say this before if you've watched my other videos, is that your beliefs are going to impact your thoughts, what goes on in your mind, and those thoughts are going to impact the way you feel, your emotions, your feelings, which are then going to impact your decisions, which are going to impact your actions, and then it's going to impact the outcome that you get. So you want to make sure, going right back to your belief system and your thoughts and all of those things, that you are really solid and you have some really solid beliefs, and you're starting to train yourself around how to do this. Now, there's a lot of neuroscience and things like that go into it as far as how to do this effectively. Again, if you need my help, reach out. I'm happy to help you with this. But it does start with a belief that you are an influential leader. You really need to embody that in your environment in order to be perceived in a certain way, but it all starts from within, right? So it starts with you believing that, because even unintentionally or subconsciously, if you start to believe that and you start to behave like an influential person and you start to be others focused, which I'll talk about in a second, and you have that belief system, that thought process of how can I help, how can I add value, if you have those strong driving questions, or those primary questions, and you're asking yourself the same thing, the same types of really empowering questions all the time, you tend to become influential because your brain is focused on how do I do that, right? How do I do that well? So a couple of examples of this, of how to really start to shift that belief system and start to believe and embody this is you can do a visualization. So every morning, as an example, you can close your eyes for a couple of minutes and start to think about and embody the most influential version of yourself. How would you walk? How would you carry yourself? How would you communicate with people? What would you do that's maybe different from what you're doing right now? So really thinking about, and it all starts in your mind. So the more you envision this and connect emotion, that's the key to this. If you're doing a visualization, you need to connect emotion to that and feel what it feels like, so that in your brain, there's no difference between actually being in that moment and visualizing it and really feeling like you are. So you want to make sure you're training yourself as much as possible to really have a strong belief system around being influential. So that's the one thing. The next thing I want to talk about when it comes to being influential is the attributes of an influential leader. So I'm going to summarize this, and it's a lot that I'm about to share with you. But I want you to check in with yourself. This is where that little exercise comes in. I want you to check in with yourself in each of these areas to see, okay, how am I showing up? Do I have this attribute, first of all? And then how am I showing up on a scale of 1 to 10? As an example, the first one is humility. It is so important, if you want to be influential, to be humble, to recognize that we're all we're all growing constantly. And there's so much to learn, and there's so much to be thankful for, and all of those kinds of things. So never being arrogant or thinking that you know more than anybody else, but actually recognizing and seeking to look for the value in other people and be curious and all of those kinds of things. So leading from that place of humility is going to draw people into you. So going back to the exercise, ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do I fit, or where do you see yourself as far as being a humble leader? And then if there's a gap, so if you're not at that 10 of where you want to be, then ask yourself, how do I get there, right? When it comes to being a humble leader, what does that mean? You have to define that for yourself. Everybody's a little bit different as far as what they see that to be. But if you think about a leader that you really admire, right? How do they embody this? What makes them an influential leader to you? And so thinking about it through that frame can sometimes help you to figure out, okay, where am I right now when it comes to being a humble leader? And it doesn't mean minimizing who you are, the value you provide. You can still be really confident in who you are and what you bring to the table, but you can be humble from the standpoint of recognizing you don't know all the answers, and there's people around you for a reason, and it's going to be up to you to tap into and draw that out of them and empower other people and bring them along and things like that. So remember that's one of the first attributes is humility, and giving thanks where thanks is due, all of those kinds of things. So humility is one. Then there's your strong North Star. This is what I mean. Leaders that are really strong or really influential, people know where they stand, right? They're not like wishy-washy where one day they're going to say one thing and the next day they're going to backtrack, because that makes people confused, and it makes it very difficult to trust you as a leader if that's the case. So you need to know your values. You need to know what you're aligned with, what you stand for, what's important to you. And then you have to make sure that your decisions, that your actions, that your thoughts are very much in line. So having that strong North Star, and also making sure your actions are aligned with your belief system. Then there's courage, right? You need to be courageous as a leader. You're going to be in situations that are really challenging, and you're going to need to step out of your comfort zone, right? You're going to need to do things that are uncomfortable to you, that might not be popular with other people. So you're going to need to have courage. And once again, going back to the exercise, make sure you are thinking about what that means to you. You're thinking about where you fall, and that's the range, a scale of 1 to 10, and then how do you get to that 10? What's the next step that you can take to get you closer? Being others focused, I talked about this as well. The most influential leaders are often thinking about other people. They are willing to be a servant leader. They are willing to sacrifice their own, what they want for themselves. And they're very much centered on how can I add value? How can I help? How can I support other people? Now, obviously that needs to be balanced, right? You can't, you don't want to go lean too far into that you're not taking care of your own needs and you're burning yourself out. But influential leaders tend to be others focused, tends to look at the big picture and think about what can I do today that's going to help make things better in the future. A desire to learn, grow, develop, right? That growth mindset is so important as an influential leader. You always want to make sure that you are looking at things from a development standpoint. How can I grow? How can I learn? How can I contribute at a higher level? Then it's encouraging. So being encouraging to other people, right? Being able to lift people up, being able to navigate when things are difficult, being able to have, good conversations when you have to deal with conflict or there's a, difficult conversation that you have to step into. And then there's things like authenticity, reliability, being dependable, being transparent, right? Because that leads to trust and building rapport. And then also taking ownership, knowing that, as a leader, you have a responsibility, right, in your area. But then you also have to take ownership, especially when things don't go your way, when things don't go well. You need to be able to be willing to take ownership of that and take that responsibility. And in that way, people see how you react. And it's often, the most influential leaders, a lot of times that comes from how you act, or people look at you and watch for how you act when things don't go your way, right? So that's how people start to build that trust and rapport and start to lean in when you start to talk and things like that, because they know they can trust you. They know that they know where you stand. They know what's important to you. You're humble, all of these things. So that's kind of the picture that we're painting here. So an effective communicator, of course, right? You need to make sure that you're communicating really, really effectively. The other thing is, let's see, owning your mistakes. So we talked about that a little bit. And then it's emotional intelligence, knowing, and this goes back to communication a little bit, right? Being able to read people really well, being able to understand their needs, being able to support them in the way that they need to be supported. And then also aligning with them, making sure that you are really clear on the expectation, really clear on where you're going and why. And aligning that both with your team and then also from a leadership perspective, so that it all ties together from a strategic level to a more tactical level. So all of those things, I know I just shared a lot, so I suggest, if this is the first time you're watching, I highly suggest you go back and listen to this again and actually do the exercise, right, with each of these attributes that I mentioned. So thinking about it from a mindset perspective and then an attribute or characteristic perspective of an influential leader. Go back and think about all these things and think about leaders that you admire. Maybe there's other qualities that stand out to you. I would love to know. So let me know in the comments below. But these are some of the key attributes of an influential leader. So I want to make sure that I'm sharing that with you today, so that you can do some introspection and think about, where do you fall? Where do you want to be ideally in each of these areas? And what's going to help you get there? What actions can you take starting today? And what belief system do you need to have? How can you show up as an influential leader? Because that is going to drive everything. So with that, I will wrap up here for today. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to comment below and I will definitely get back to you as soon as possible. If you need some specific help in this area of influence, or if there's a situation that you're in right now and you just need some support, feel free to go to the link that I'm going to post below, and you can click right through and schedule some time with me. Again, completely free, no obligation. I'm happy to help you as much as possible. And then if we're a fit, we can talk about ways to work together as well. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. And I will come back and do another one of these videos really, really soon. Bye for now.